Hey everybody, this is Eric Dorward with the Spartan Rocketry Club starting a new build today. We are going to I found a bunch of these Screamin Mimis stuck in storage somewhere. This is an old vintage Estes rocket from some time ago. Copyright says 2002, so it's fairly dated, but it's still a fun build. And the most important part about this is that we are going to be flying off of, it doesn't get too high, but the reason is because of the size of engine it uses. This uses a 24 millimeter engine mount, so it can fly 24 millimeter motors. Smaller kind, unfortunately. This won't take an E, but it will take a C11 and a D12. So that is something to be looking forward to, and it meets one of our flight criteria for launching a D rocket. So anyway, this is the plan. Off it goes. We're going to be building slightly out of order according to the instructions, but by and large, we'll follow them pretty closely. The first step is we need to build the engine mount. This is the main engine mount tube right here. We need to do a little bit of measuring before we actually put anything together. So we need to make sure that we have all the tools for that, which would mainly be a pencil, and eventually I'm going to need a door jamb, but not for this one. So let's measure. Now, according to the instructions, we need to make marks in a couple different places. I'm just going to put my finger in the tube to hold it and hold my ruler up against it. And I need to make a mark at 1/2 inch, so that's right here. I need to make another one at 1 3/4, which would be right here. And I need to make one final one a 1/4 inch from the end, which would be right here. Actually, now that I'm reading it, it actually says I need to make it 1 3/4 from the other end. Well, that's annoying. So, yeah, helps to actually read the instructions carefully. 1 3/4 from the business end of the tube would actually be right here. Truthfully, this part doesn't matter terribly. Let's get rid of that one. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this out. These two rings are going to go on the edges here, and then there's a tube that kind of goes in between and holds the engine hook, which is right here, in place. This is our motor block. So we've got everything cut, or sorry, now we've got everything measured. Now it's time to actually cut. Here's my knife. We are going to be cutting this one that's a 1/4 inch from the end. We want to put a little slit in it so we can get the engine hook in it. So all I'm going to do is just put my knife here, press gently, and that's probably more than enough, but I'm going to put the engine hook in just to make sure it'll fit. It actually needs to be a little bit bigger. There we go. That's more than enough. In goes the engine hook. There we go. And that looks fine. I'm just going to leave that on there temporarily because don't really need to worry about that too much. The instructions say we're going to glue it in place. We're not really going to glue it in place. What we're going to do is we're going to put this goes over top, and it's going to go down to this mark right here, and I'm just going to smear some glue up in front of that mark. I don't really need to glue the hook in place because the retainer will hold on to it just fine. So here's my glue. We're using wood glue. You can use white glue, but personally I prefer wood glue. This is going to make a bit of a mess, so I've got a tissue just in case. So on it goes. We don't need much. Just whoops. Oh well. I'll put that on later anyway. And that should be plenty. So on this thing goes, and we want to kind of smear it around, and that looks just about right. And I've got it lined up with my 1 3/4 inch mark, which is right there. This is actually pretty loose. I'm kind of concerned about that, but it doesn't really need to do a whole lot. It's just retaining the hook a wee bit. Now, next step, we need to put on the rings. Now, ideally, we would use our knife to punch these out, but truthfully, we don't need to. It's just cardstock, so we can just punch the parts out that we don't need. So there's the first ring, punching out the second one, And there we have it. Now, if you do this by hand, you're going to get extra burrs. But truthfully, that's not really a big deal. Now, what do we need to do? Well, this part that has the little notch in it is going to go over the hook. So it's going to go like this. And it's going to line up with the 1/2 inch mark that I drew. So it should be right about there. The other one is just going to go right up at the end. It says flush with the tube. So I'm actually going to move it a little bit past. And I'm going to put some glue at the end here. And I'm going to put some glue right at my 1/2 inch mark. Let's do that now. The 1/2 inch one matters a bit more because of we actually care about the measurements. This is going to stick out probably a little bit. All right. So it's kind of hard to see my mark. Move my hook a little bit so I can see it. It looks like it's right there. So that's good. Now, the one thing you want to do is make sure that the ring is, well, not crooked. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, mine's actually a little warped from what I can see looking down at it, but it looks generally fine. Now I'm going to put some glue on the other end and get that in place too. The nice thing about wood glue is that it sets up faster and it's tackier from the start than regular white glue. This is entirely too much glue and a lot's going to come off when I slide it down. In fact, I'm going to put it down like this, just kind of push the ring. And that's going to leave a nice ring of glue on my newsprint here, which is why we have that down so I'm not damaging a desk. There's also some here on the interior of the ring, so I want to be careful with that. Just to make sure my rings are pretty much in the right place, again, kind of looking at them to make sure that they're parallel with each other. This one looks like I bumped it a bit in the process. That looks better. If these things are too crooked, they're not going to fit flush inside of the body tube, and that'll be a problem. So we want them as perpendicular as possible. The last thing we need to do is I didn't put the engine block in, which is this green thing. That's actually a pretty easy step. It goes just inside the hook. So I'm going to put some glue on the interior of the tube. This is a great place if you have a wooden dowel to be using that, but I haven't cut mine yet, so I don't have one. This goes inside. Again, push down. There we go. And it should fit up flush next to the hook, which it has. It's probably hard to see, but it has. And it's basically up to the edge. That's the engine block to make sure the engine doesn't go flying out the rocket when we actually launch it. And yeah, this middle part is not very flush. It's actually seems like it's a little too big for the mount, but the glue is set and it doesn't really serve a structural purpose, so that'll be fine. So there's my complete motor mount. I'm going to get this out of the way and let it dry for the time being. And there it goes. Now, the next thing we need to do is deal with the fins. Previously, we have been doing either paper fins or plastic fins, but this is the first time I'm doing a video where we have wood fins. That means we actually have to sand them and get them to look nice. They're made out of balsa. Sometimes you'll get fins that are made out of basswood, it's also very nice. It's a little heavier, but it's also quite strong, and it has less veining in it, so less of the grain. It's a nice wood. But balsa is very strong considering how light it is. So this is actually a very interesting plant, which you could look up on the internet and learn all about it. My understanding is people actually eat this stuff in some parts of the world. Anyway, the fins are all in here. They're two separate sheets. Before we actually do anything with them, we want to sand them, give them a nice first coat sanding. So since I've got glue on this sheet, I'm going to fold it over. Oh, we got comics. That's fun. Now, I'm not going to bore you with watching me sand all this stuff, but the basic gist is I have a sanding block here. This is your best tool, but if you just have a piece of sandpaper, that'll work as well. Either way, we're going to start, and I'm going to sand in circles. Sanding in circles gets the dust out of the way, probably the best, and if you kind of go nuts in one particular part, just sanding up and down like this, it might be noticeable. But anyway, so I'm just going to sand in big circles, and some of this will come off. I'm not looking for perfection here. All I'm looking for is to smooth this up and get rid of any really obviously nasty parts, which you can just do by feeling it. It is not going to be perfectly smooth, regardless of what you do. No matter how long I'm sitting here, I am not going to get this perfectly smooth. Also, every once in a while, you should probably stop, blow off the dust, because the dust gets into the grain and kind of stops you from really sanding as well as you could. Now, just feeling this, it's pretty good. There's some really rough spots over here on this part of the fin I want to make sure I get. But these two parts are good enough for now. Near the end of the project, we're going to sand them again, and we're actually going to use a bunch of different wood fills and things like that in order to get as much of the grain out. If you just slap the wood fins right on the rocket before you painted and didn't do any kind of prep work, you would see very sizable deep grooves, which is, it doesn't look good for one thing, but the larger problem, at least for us, is the smoother the fin is, the less drag there is, and the less drag means the better altitude. So we're not going to like go to a paint shop and use anything super serious to do this. We're still going to use spray paint, but we do want a decent looking finish. So anyway, at this point, I think I'm probably going to call this first video, because I need my engine mount to dry before I do anything else, and there's no sense in really watching me sand. So I will finish the sanding, and then I will pop the pieces out, and then we'll see what the next phase of this project is. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in part 2.